Hey FlossTube, Erin from Fairy Tales and French Knots here with my first attempt at a How I Did Something video. So, little backstory. On October 19th of 2024, I went to a retreat in Leroy, New York called Schoolgirl Samplers of Western New York, Jane Boyer, 1834. And it was really fascinating. There was some local history. We learned about life in upstate New York during that time period, and also a little bit of the family history of the little girl who stitched this sampler. On the table when we got there were these items, and we were told this red fabric would have been something that her lunch might have been wrapped in. The felt would have been for her to dab her ink off of her pen when she was writing, and this would have been her inkwell. And in the inkwell, they attached a magnet to use this as a little needle minder. So this was intended to be used to make a tomato pincushion. And here's the pattern we were given from inspired by Michelle Ray. And I kept looking at the finished piece up on the display table, and I was looking at this and looking at the size of the tomato and thinking to myself, I could put this inside the tomato. So what I'm going to try to do, and hopefully document the steps as I go, probably not all of them and probably not the best because I'm kind of new at this, but I'm going to try and show how I put the little jar inside the tomato, and hopefully it will work. If it doesn't work, this video will get deleted and no one will ever see it. So stay tuned. I can tell you that there are a lot of videos out there, very well made, that show you how to cut these patterns apart and start the assembly of the tomato itself. So I'm going to use one of those. I'll link them below. The difference will come when I try to put it all together. So stay tuned and I'll be back hopefully. Bye. So, as expected, I left some steps out, and I apologize, but I'm going to try and get to the important steps here. So here is my tomato, completely assembled. Here's the bottom, here's the top. I did leave a larger opening than the other instruction videos had because I know how big the bottom of this jar is. One thing I did not take into account, which is that this is going to be taller than this little jar. So what I think will happen, because what I tested this is, this is very fiddly, especially because I left this opening just big enough for the jar. But I actually put it in the wrong way, technically, because once it is inside, you work the fabric around the jar, boop. Then you can turn it so that the little jar top pokes out the top. So, as you can see, if I line up my bottom here on my jar, I've got an awful lot of fabric, and I'm not sure that I can stuff it that way, if it will go that way. So what I may do is put some crushed walnut shell on the bottom first, and then put this little guy back in and see if he sits up a little bit higher. So there is my first assembly step. The other thing I will do, let me pop him out of here. I'm going to fold all of this down and put a running stitch in it. So once the little jar is where I want him, I can just pull it tight like a drawstring around the neck of the jar. Okay, so I'm going to go get some walnut shell and experiment a little bit. And again, I'll be back. Bye. So just another quick progress update here. I've put the running stitch into the fold in the top. So, I've got a little folded over my raw edges and finished the top. So once the jar is inserted, I can pull this drawstring and then finish off that. But like I said, you can see that it's much taller than the jar. So I am about to use some of my ground nutshells and fill up the bottom so that the little jar can sit in the walnut shells, and then I'll fill around the jar with the shells as well. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so here it is. I got my little jar in there. This is full of walnut shell and a little bit of polyfill to make the roundedness round. So I think it came out pretty well, actually. And the little cap will fit on top. So there's this. I'm not really thrilled with the gathering. I had some issues. I usually do. And what I thought I would do is take this little bit of ribbon that I have and fasten it around. It will end up kind of crunched up, but that's what I want. That's the effect I'm kind of going for, just to hide the bottleneck and the gathers in the fabric. So to do this, I used upholstery thread because I did not use upholstery thread for my gathers, and I should have. So lesson learned, if you decide to try this, use some heavy duty, strong thread for your gathers. Mine broke a few times, and that's why I'm going to do this to hide that. So let me do that. Part of why I can't show the actual process is that my camera is being held on my Lowry stand, and it's not the most stable and not the best for filming. But let me get this put together, and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so here is my little stem wrapped around real tight with upholstery thread, and now I'm going to take a little bit of Aleene's tacky and I'm going to put that right here on the underside of the ribbon, and I'm going to pull it again, and this is my my thread, which is also sewn, but I want to glue it because I know when I cut this ribbon it's going to fray. So I'm going to hold that real tight in both directions and just give that a little bit to dry. And in just a minute, I'll be back with the cutting of the ribbon. So I'm going to take this, once this glue has set, and just give it a couple minutes, I'm going to take this, I'm going to run it down into the tomato real tight and then cut it so that this is buried. Okay, so I'll be back in a sec. All right, so here it is. I finished it all up. I cut out the leaf top pattern from the green wool that was included in the table gift, and I glued it to the cork for the top of the jar. I did one little addition of my own, which is I had some dowel, so rather than a little loop of wool for the top, I decided I wanted a little stem. So I added that. There's how the ribbon finished up around the neck of the jar. And then we just put top back on. And there it is. My little useful tomato. I mean, not that a tomato isn't useful anyway, but he's all assembled. There he sits. You can squish them around as needed. There is some polyfill in the top as well, just to help round it out, as the video that I'm going to link below has in their instructions. So there it is. And feel free to, make your tomato and fill the middle with whatever works for you. Thanks. Bye.